but I don't care. The wind is blowing in my hair. Seagulls flying in the air. My white bicycle. My white bicycle. The lamppost hangs, his head in disgrace, shines no light upon my face. Through the darkness we still see my white bicycle and me. My white bicycle. My white bicycle. Policeman shouts, but I don't see. The one thing I don't believe in. He'll find some charge, better stop thieving. My white bicycle. My white bicycle. My white bicycle. My white bicycle. iTunes Radio reminds you, Strange Brew's the show of your choice.
Hello and welcome again to the Strange Brew podcast. My name's Jason Barnard and that was Tomorrow and My White Bicycle, and that's because Steve Howe has gone back to the tapes of Tomorrow's fantastic debut album and updated and reimagined that fantastic LP, and we'll be speaking with Steve today about his time in Tomorrow as well as the latest Yes material with their new album Mirror to the Sky. So let's hear my chat with Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
We last spoke in 2019 around the release of the New Frontier album, the Steve Howe Trio.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, good.
This time it'd be great to cover two aspects, things that kind of bookend your music. Firstly, the new version of the Tomorrow album, and latterly, it'd be great to catch up on Yes.
Sure, we can do that.
Excellent. So I've been listening to the new version of the Tomorrow album, and it's badged as being reimagined. Can you tell us about what's different with this new version?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, much like Giles Martin did with Revolver, it was a process that I imagined could work. I got Keith and Twink to agree to the idea. Basically, the album that we made in 1967, we came out in 1968, unfortunately, which was also a silly thing about it. It wasn't really perceived as a psychedelic record, and yet, you know, I knew that that's what the group was really heading into. So, well, I mean, you know, it's a kind of a process. In other words, the first thing we did was we requested the original mono mixes because they were the least available things of Tomorrow, because most of it was in this stereo format, which was very unsatisfying. And it was kind of tin pot, you know, there was a lot of factors in it that in the audio sense were missing, you know, and anyway, actually, I thought it would be quite easy to describe. So basically, like it says in the sleeve, I kind of reimagined it. So in other words, I took the tracks into the technology and did minimal things to it. I mean, some of it is virtually the same, but some of it isn't. And the things that aren't, particularly with Revolution, were that song was it was a bit of a muddle what was going on in it. You know, the different tempos and things like this, and there were gaps and all sorts of things. So basically, this reimagining was really like looking at the music and saying, well, what would be desirable to do this, to bring it into line with My White Bicycle and things like that, which were obviously, purely psychedelic.
Yeah.
So basically, things were adjusted more than, it wasn't remixed so much as things were adjusted, and we were able to do a tremendous amount now with a mono mix. You can adjust the EQs on individual instruments. You can, adjust the balances if they're a bit kind of crude, and lots of them were. So at times, the harmony vocals were too loud. Sometimes something was too loud, and the general chaotic feeling that I corrected. So, and also by taking 3 tracks off the album, Mary, Somebody's Dress Shop, and these other kind of songs which weren't really treated seriously by us at all. They weren't developed at all. So anyway, we took those 3 tracks off, but there was room for other sort of hidden gems, like the album opens with the alternative version of Real Life Permanent Dream, which was really just a live version done in the studio. And that's how we, more or less, how we played it on stage. And I started the album with that, for the very purpose that we titled it Permanent Dream. And also that I wanted to show the energy in the band. And then we go into the further songs, which are all, like have a little bit of treatment. So basically all I'm doing is stylizing things as much as I can, developing, getting things in tune, in pitch. Some of the tracks are running at the wrong pitch. And that affects my ears a lot because, it doesn't sound right until it's in tune. So we in-tuned things, which corrected tempos, and then, as I said, we treated, occasionally we brought down a guitar or brought up the drums, or, basically we reposition those instruments to be more pleasing. And we were thorough doing this to every track wherever it needed it, and, it was a lot of fun to do this, to make the mono mix really a convincing medium for tomorrow.
And My White Bicycle, superb production. You've got backwards guitar there, you've got Policeman's Whistle. In terms of Mark Wirtz's production, how far have you moved away from that, or is it more a case of the balance of how it came out?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't lost anything he did. All we've done is to our ears, we've made it more listenable now. It was partly the stereo mixes that were readily available were, that old style where the vocals are on one side and the drums are on the other side. And if you monoed that, it sounded something like the mono mix that we've got. But there again, people aren't going to do that. So the stereo mixes were checked in mono to make sure they were all right. But in fact, they've not been available. So, yeah, My White Bicycle is one of the ones that's least treated, although, of course, nobody's really heard the mono for a while. And also we put a slight bit of phasing on a couple of bits in it just to kind of simulate a little from the stereos. But yeah, I mean, it was a rough time for stereo, at that 1967 when we were mixing it.
You've got Claremont Lake on this new version as well, and I recall reading that that was one of Frank Zappa's favourites.
Yeah, that was a big surprise to me when we met Frank. He said to me, "Oh, that's a great solo on Claremont Lake." So yeah, it was surprising that he'd heard it, and delighted that he liked it. And it's one of those little milestones in my career where somebody said something like Georgie Fame said something about me on my second Syndicats record, where he said, "Oh, he liked the guitarist" or something. So those things they really are important. They're lovely ingredients of warmth and encouragement. And I guess much like when I showed up to work with Mark Wirtz the first time ever on a session where there wasn't anybody there, and I said, "Well, where is everybody?" And they said, "No." He said, "It's just you." And I went, "Wow, Studio 2, EMI, just me." And I was tracking up guitars and doing things. And basically, those little things, are tremendously important to an artist, where they have that little bit of encouragement, and you feed off that and you go with it. And of course, Tomorrow was kind of much more of a breakthrough for me in lots of respects. My White Bicycle was almost a hit record, and all these kind of things almost happened for us. But I guess one could be thankful that maybe we didn't. We weren't destined to be successful then, and maybe it would have been dangerous if we had been. But we were trying, and anyway.
Yeah, because Tomorrow on that psychedelic scene around the time of 1967 were You were up there with many of your peers like Pink Floyd and Jimi Hendrix, and there's one moment where you were asked to stand in for Syd Barrett, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's another true story. I was excited, to think I was going to stand in, and jam, really. I mean, it would have been a jam, most probably, because there was going to be no rehearsal. Yeah, but I was rushed there, and then at the very last minute he showed up. So, I just had to cool my heels. Another classic moment earlier on was when Chris Farlow asked me to stand. I mean, I'm just blabbering about all these great moments now. You got me started, but, I got a call from like Chris Farlow, and he said, "Can you stand in for Albert tonight?" And I went, "Well, I'm not turning this down." And it was one of the best nights I can remember in my early career, was being picked up in Aston Martin and rushed to Wolverhampton and actually rehearsed with the Thunderbirds and Chris. And so these moments, they never go away. Thank goodness.
watching the sun coming up and down, and every night and day, every night and day, peaceful people, so quiet,
The experiences that you had in the 60s are a superb grounding for your work in the 70s. But the Syndicats, for example, you some great singles like Howling for My Baby, but you worked with Joe Meek, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a Joe Meek band. Really. Well, I mean, we were a band, and we managed to get an audition with Joe, and that was my first recording experience, really. And I kind of look up to Joe a bit, because he was, he also was quite encouraging, and but also it was about realizing another important side of the business is actually getting on with people, and if you don't find a producer too intimidating, then you can get on with him, and then when he says, "Oh, let's overdub a solo," you're in heaven, oh, we're gonna overdub, great, and So Joe was a hell of a character, but he was my grounding, along with the few other producers that I work with, and basically the engineers as well. Like on Tomorrow, Jeff Emmerich was just like he was a fixture at EMI. He didn't book it, and he came with it, and that was really fantastic. And the other guy, Peter Brown as well. So basically, Peter Brown and Jeff also. I always watched engineers, and the desk was a scary looking thing. It looked like it was like a spaceship. Of course, it wasn't in any comparison. But the desk, Joe Meek and his tapes. He had the floor full of tape, and he cut bits of tape out of things and sped things up, and So basically, what went on besides playing the guitar, fortunately, really interested me. It was something that I thought you would learn about, and I guess I did.
Pretty baby. Come on home. I love you. If you hear me howling, calling on my darling. She's hot like ready pepper, sweet like cherry wine. I'm so glad she loves me, love me all the time. She's my little baby, sweet as she can be. All this love she's got, it just belongs to me. If you hear me howling, counting on my darling. Kiss me, she lets the lights go out. Early in the morning, she make me jump and shout. Red love got, make me laugh and cry. Make me really know I'm too young to die. If you hear me howling, howling on my darling. Ooh.
After Tomorrow's split and you joined Bodast, although Keith West was the producer, you actually had a very young Ken Scott as engineer.
That's right. Again, we were lucky to just find these guys. We were at Trident, I think, doing that, and Ken was there. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to rub shoulders with these people. Sometimes you don't even know that you're really rubbing shoulders with them until their name becomes apparent later, and then you look back and think, wow, that was great. So, yeah, it was marvelous to have their skills. Like Eddie offered with Yes, for the first 5 years, was really this go-to guy, the answer to the problems. We were supposedly producing Yes as a band, but we couldn't have done it without Eddie. And the same with Keith when we did the Bodast album. But in between, of course, I did some work with Keith on a few tracks, which did eventually come out. It had some fascinating lineups where Ronnie Wood was playing bass and Ainsley Dunbar was playing drums. Wow. So Keith was assembling, in between Tomorrow and Bodast. he was sort of assembling ideas for further recordings. So that's always interested me. Yeah, I guess Les Paul basically started all this. Really, he's one of the best producers ever that the world's ever had. And if you listen to his work today, it's completely astounding that it could possibly sound that good. And yet it was recorded on what we would call a pile of junk. I mean, stuff, old tapes and that was the first one. One of his first hits wasn't even recorded on the 8-track machine that he was notorious for getting. So, I mean, there are some remarkable things. George Martin, remarkable Phil Spector, I suppose. But also there's an awful lot of producers who don't get any credit, and, like maybe Ron Richards with the Hollies, or there's so many of these key people who've done things for bands. So I guess I was always thinking, you don't get here on your own. I didn't come out as a solo singer or solo guitarist. Having always been in bands, I always fully appreciate what teamwork really is.
Never Street, which is Bodast, there's a riff in that came back later in Yes with Worms. So would you often reach back to licks or riffs or ideas that you had in many years before and dig into them?
Well, not if they've been released. But the thing about the Bodast album, it wasn't released. So I saw that music as canned, shelved, possibly, and it could have been for forever. In fact, if it hadn't been for the fact that I was very moved in 1978 to hear the news that Clive Skinner, his real name was Clive Muldoon, he was sometimes credited as, had passed away. And that got me to get together with Gary Langham and produce the mixes that we did in then release the album. So yeah, I mean, when I got back to the album, I thought, oh God, this is Worm, And there's other bits of Close to the Edge and all sorts of bits of songs in there. And I don't generally do that. That is something most writers avoid, is self-plagiarism, you could call it. But this was done under a different sort of shelter, because really, literally, that music. Well, obviously, you can see how well it was developed by Yes, that I didn't have any reservations. But yeah, I assumed that Bodast was dead and buried and I'd never hear from Tetragrammophone again. 3, 4.
And some other recent news is that the Yes tour, which was European and UK dates for Relayer, have been put back another year. What's your perspective on the Relayer album? Because there's obviously the Gates of Delirium is such an ambitious and epic track. Where do you think that fits under the Yes albums?
Oh, well, right up there. I mean, 2018, 2019, we were playing the Gates of Delirium and absolutely loving it. And that was preparing us for doing Relayer. So that album's right up there. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the sequence, in fact, I was in a cab the other day and the guy said to me, a black London cab, and he said to me, the Yes album, that's the great Yes album. So if you look at the way that the Yes album, was followed and superseded and improved on, and you get to Coast to the Edge and Topographic Oceans, you get to Relayer, well, that's a monumental chunk of work. And it went on, going for the One and particularly Drama, I think is fantastic. So we had lots of hiatus in the 70s, no doubt about it. We were crazy, fanatical musos, and rambling off on anything we wanted to. And we were incredibly free. And that's the key to music. It must allow you to be free of restraint and oppression and things like this. But yeah, Relayer is a sensational record. Yeah, I mean, it's complex and kind of maybe even overly adventurous.
my favourite solo tracks of yours is Turbulence from just over 30 years now. The great Bill Bruford on drums.
Certainly.
How would you approach your solo materials in periods like that, as opposed to Yes and similar collaborative projects?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because really I quite like reviewing music. I once read a quote by George Harrison where he said he never listened to the Beatle records. Once he made the record, he never listened to it. And I don't really think that could have been true, but it certainly isn't true of me. I like to, when I made a record, I want to hear it for quite a while, maybe 2 to 3 months. That's a really good break after you just made it. I mean, you spent maybe months making it, or maybe years with time over the years. But anyway, so making the records is great, and then not hearing them for a while, then try and appreciate what it is you've just done. So then years can pass, and quite recently I did a pretty big review where each night I picked one of my solos and listened to it, and just sort of sat there and thought, well, yeah, yeah, I kind of like, I like this bit. And Turbulence was forever interesting because there are times in the album Turbulence, and the track, epitomizes Turbulence, really, the album. But I mean, at that time, sounds were very dateable, in other words, you can look back and you can see how you were thinking because of the time, that you were in. So, beginnings of Steve Howe, I was just doing a lot of crazy jamboree, what I call my jamboree albums, where there's everything. I throw everything in, a bit of country, a bit of rock, a few songs. It's a kind of bizarre, almost crazy idea I had, the way that kind of hung together in my mind. So when I listen back, I can see where I was coming from, but I didn't carry on making every album like that, in that. So I got into things like Spectrum and things that were much more defined as a direction. So when I hear Turbulence, I leapt out, from moving across my albums. This was quite a techno-sounding kind of album. The first couple were much more homely sounding, I think, in some respects, besides the orchestral work. But Turbulence it's not an anger, but it was angular. It was kind of pushy. And of course, I had a nice bit of help from Billy Curry on the keyboards on that, besides Bill Bruford. But I think on that particular track, it's an organist who plays it actually at St. Paul's Cathedral at the time.
Wow.
And he played some organ on there for me. His name slipped my memory. I'm sorry.
No worries.
It's somewhere. It is credited. And he was a lovely chap. He just did that one session for me on a special organ. So that track was full. When I put the CD on and he went, and the plane started flying around. Yeah, I mean, I always had a bit of fascination for, sound effects. And I guess that one was key, the way those... I had this record called a nuclear-powered submarine or something. Yeah, I had sound effect records, which were a bit out of the usual, and I've still got them. I collected them. If I see something weird, I go, what's that? The sound of a nuclear submarine? Got to buy that. So that was the kind of crazy stuff I bought, as well as music from Tibet and, all sorts of weird records, just anything that wasn't ordinary, it wasn't in the charts. I would most probably buy it. But Turbulence had this, and as an album as well, later on there's a hurdy-gurdy playing somewhere that we utilise. So there's a lot of, I suppose, ambitious, and also very, when you look at the album and the inner battle, and particularly, goodness me, there's one track, about the third track, and I've got multiple kind of riffs going. And when Bill came in to play on it, I just kind of said to him, well, here it is, but I don't know what you do with this. And he just, he listened to it and he went, well, I think it's changing from like 7/8 to like 11/8 or something. I said, I don't know. I play this stuff and sometimes I don't even know really what time signature it's in because I just keep playing the parts that I feel. So he went out there and he kept moving the downbeat, one beat along every bar. And this just did something wacky to the track, the inner battle, and I don't know what the other one was, but they were particularly careful. But, like While Rome's Burning, he just laid back and very, very straight playing really from Bill. But that doesn't diminish from the fact that his drumming had like almost an elevation beats in it. There was a way that Bill, and he could still do it, I'm sure, but all of his drumming showed that incredible lightness of touch, where he didn't need to do a whole lot of Buddy Rich breaks. All he would do would just be Bill Bruford, and that was great. So that team on Turbulence was very, very exciting to work with, and I guess that's when I started to shine and craft my records more than I had the first two. That was my third record, and it was a lot of fun.
And of course, it's good to talk about the forthcoming Yes album, Mirror to the Sky. And we've all heard the new single, Cut from the Stars, that's been really, really well received. It must be difficult in a way, given that Alan's sadly passed on. So how is it moving on from Alan to craft this new album?
Well, it's almost like, Yes is a kind of bulldozer. When you look at the 70s and how often we change members, and then we look at the 80s and how different that was then, and then started to develop. So the way that we've managed to cope over the years, or different members have managed, not only me, of course, but not only me being there, but when I wasn't there, rather, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So when I wasn't there, they still found ways of getting over the next hurdle. And they had a few hurdles in the 80s, that a friend of mine tells me about quite a lot. The way they made those two albums, and then the last album. Yes, get over problems. We continue because there is a sort of inner flame of Yes that nobody holds. No one person holds it. It has to be a collective, like kind of Olympic flame of Yes. There has to be something going on. Even if I'm not there, even if so-and-so's not there, So basically, it's a bit like a gauntlet gets handed on to the next collective that is actually managing to get their heads around not only playing retrospective Yes music impeccably well, but also, as we've starting to sort of demonstrate now with The Quest and now Mirror to the Sky, that in fact this band may be able to create relevant new music, and I wasn't fully convinced of that, before in the latter 2010s. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I was always holding Yes back, saying, well, look, until we've got the songs, it's no good really making a record, because what you need are songs. So getting a good balance of songs and doing that, but also, as I say, playing Yes with the highest respect for the music and all the members that have been there in the performance, that's really, we missed doing the performance, and we worked on our albums, and we hope to get our, more experience back on. And it is a great shame that we've, through various, conjecture and uncomplimentary and unsatisfying developments, through what we booked back in 2020, just rotating this again was really hard, and delaying it again was really hard, especially after we were out last year. So it's a curious sort of collapse of part of that side of our ability to take on the tour that was planned for 2020 in 2023. So really, we want to be able to do our best by knowing that what we're doing is right. And by the time we got here this year, there were just so many things that were problematic. And we will adjust that next year and come up with a new idea, really, for that. Because I feel taking Relaya along is a bit like taking COVID along. It's become like, surely, can we? Are we? Must we? But no, we want to. And the desire that we had in early 2020, when we were all beavering away, learning the detail of Relaya, not just the structure, but actually, the actual, all the notes. I was doing that, and we were all set to go off and play Relaya. And I think we could have done it then. We could have done it 21. We could have done it 22. But, that's what I mean. We kind of need to be able to book tours and adjust set lists accordingly to what we know is best for us and our audience at any given time.
International dark sky. of some perspective, I find my place in the jewel collective. Daylight glare blinding me, only after dark may I clearly see. Look up, breathe out, walk about, international dark sky park. I wanna be in zero G, international dark sky park. Relay, free jump, father what life is all about. Reach out and cut from the stars. In the light of your perfection, troubles are so very small. Planetary sanctuary, I touch, I can reflect it all. In vision, ignite the spark. Vision, we have transmission after dark. Andromeda, dark star splendor, horizon lightning, distant thunder, a canvas for creation theory. Now the hunter's in the southern sky. Have you really traveled so many light years to find out? So confused and so careless, in desperate need of awareness. Our pale blue dot, dangling in the crossfires, unraveling. But what of the healing? In the light of your perfection, troubles are so very small. Planetary sanctuary, we touch, we trace, embrace it all. In vision, ignite the spark. Vision, point of ignition. In vision, ignite the spark. Vision, we have transmission after dark.
To close, it's clear that with the title track of Mirror to the Sky, and there's luminosity as well from the album that span over 10 minutes, that the creative element of Yes and the drive continues to flourish.
Well, yeah, I mean, things don't happen without hard work. This isn't a carousel floating down, some snow in Switzerland. This Yes has always been a band that was prepared to work on things very hard. So, yeah, it is nice. And it's also good that gradually from The Quest and now Mirror, we're starting to kind of get a scale in our music that we like. We're not ever trying well, if anybody says, "Oh, why don't you do a 20-minute piece?" I just say, "Look, can you just not say that? When we get a 20-minute piece, we'll have one, you know."
Yeah.
But we're not trying to get that. What we're trying to do is to work on our songs individually as really beautiful things that we can create together and get everybody involved. Everybody has great parts. You know, we get all the balancing right, and we get all the textural qualities right. But we don't want to lose that flame, you know, and we want to keep the emotion and the excitement that we've got in that. So that's all part of the Yes thing. But also behind the scenes, of course, it's also an organization. It has to, you know, it has to work structurally, contractually, you know, within the rules that are applied to us and everybody else in the world. But also, you know, we are carrying on a flag of a band. So in lots of ways, we are still working with everybody who's ever been in Yes, you know, in one respect or another, in different degrees, with different, you know, arms out from different eras. So yeah, I'm extremely proud to have come from the Yes album era and seen what I did in the 70s, and then got back in, you know, 95. It was much harder work in 95, you know, with Keys to Ascension and Open Your Eyes, and goodness me, there was just so many. There were so many challenges that were greater in a way than the one when we had that new momentum, you know. So when Fragile came out and we were being welcomed into a more successful appreciation, but so continuing is exciting, and it takes pace, you know, it takes belief and strength. So yeah, the bigger music we play kind of allows us to be more, not creative is a word that I try not to use too often, but you know, to be more colourful, I suppose. And when you think about a great song like, let's just say Penny Lane, you know, I mean, that song is not like another Beatles song I can think of, nor is I'm a Walrus, you know, nor is, so in the way the Beatles are totally the forerunners of this, you know, because before that, bands did songs that all kind of sounded the same. It's just a different song. Same, there's an organ and a guitar. And the Beatles stopped doing that. They don't have harmonica on this one, you know, a Leslie guitar on this one, you know. And basically, I think that's the spirit of progressive music, was really started, you know, firmly by the Beatles in the sense of psychedelia, and always said that psychedelia developed and became prog, you know, and it became that. So that's it. That's my feelings about, yeah, like you say, Yes, doing new music, and also that we are, in a way, an incarnation of what Yes needs to be and can be. And that's the thing. Need is one word, but yes, this is the Yes that can exist, and we're very pleased.
Fantastic. It's a lovely way to tie things up, given that we started in the 60s with Tomorrow, peers of the Beatles. And it's a pleasure as always, Steve. I wish you all the best with the release of Tomorrow and the new Yes album.
All right, Jason, it's been nice to talk to you. And
bye-bye.
Nice questions. Very thoughtful. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Strange Brew podcast. If you do like the show, please consider a small donation to help keep the show archive online. It's 10 years since I started the podcast, and hosting fees are increasing over time. All your support keeps the show running and helps me get amazing guests. To support me, just go to thestrangebrew.co.uk where you'll see a donate button on the homepage. Thank you very much. Plus, any reviews on your podcast services help to spread the word too. Thank you.